With your girl Goldie on TAN TV, the African American network, where we have a local feel and a global reach. And welcome back to the coffee break with your girl Goldie. Today we are talking to Judge Peter Sakai. How you doing,
I'm
Judge
doing
Sakai?
great, Goldie. Thank you for being here on a coffee break.
I know, right? Thank you for coming in. And we just wanted to kind of find out a little bit about you today. I know that you are running for office for the November 8th elections.
Running for county judge.
County
Judge Nelson Wolf's retiring after an illustrious career of 20 years. And I've stepped down from being a district court judge at the Children's Court, the 225th District Court, to step up to be your next county judge.
Nice. Why? Why do you want to bring this new position into your life? Why?
Well, for 40 years since I became an attorney, I have been a public servant.
Okay.
I have truly dedicated my life to my community. And more than a public servant, I'm a servant leader. I have a strong faith in God. I have a strong faith in family. I have a strong faith in my community. And I've always tried to make a difference, especially for children and families. And day one, when I was in the district attorney's office, I was the chief of the juvenile section and focused on juvenile crime and focused on abused and neglected children. Went into private practice, established a successful law practice, and defended children and defended parents who came into the court. And then I got an opportunity to be the Children's Court, a nationally recognized program here in Bexar County. And then my friend and predecessor, Judge John Speaker, retired, and I took over for the 225th District Court, running for 4 terms of office, the last 3 unopposed. So this community has always given and trusted me, and I want to continue to give back to my community.
Awesome. And you're originally from what area?
I'm down from the Rio Grande Valley along the border of Mexico. My family were farmers.
Okay.
And so I'm a farm boy.
Yeah, I'm a farm girl.
But you know what? They worked me so hard, I took off, went to school, and became a lawyer and judge.
I think that's the goal. That's the goal. They work you hard on those farms because they want you to like go to school and be all you can be, so you don't want to come back.
Well, my father and mother taught me about hard work, doing things the right way with integrity and with humility. And those are the values that I grew up with, and I think they've served me well as a public servant.
Yeah. How long have you been in this profession?
I've been an attorney for 40 years.
Wow, yeah. Some of the things that you want to address, if elected to your new position, why do you think that there are disparities in those areas right now?
Well, obviously we know that, there's implicit bias, there's disproportionality, there's institutional racism. And so the public servant in me says, you know what, we got to deal with those inequities. We got to recognize and know history, In my lifetime, my dad was interned at the onset of World War II with the war with Japan because he was a Japanese American. And so that experience has taught me to value constitutional rights, to value people who've been marginalized, people who've been discriminated. And so I really am a rule of law. I want to protect people's rights, the Constitution, and unfortunately, we're living in a time when our Constitution, especially the right to vote, is under attack.
It is, yeah. I think when you look at some of those challenges and the big thing becomes, when people voter fraud. What do you think about that? Is that even like a real issue?
It is.
Okay.
I'm a person that believes in the rule of law. As a county judge, I will take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of this state. And if there's any time that we have to observe and respect the rule of law, it's now. We have people that are election deniers. We have people that are challenging the integrity of our elections. People that don't believe that our current president is the legitimately elected.
Right, exactly.
And they're constantly challenging. And so the county judge, as the leader for Bexar County, is going to have to push back and make sure that we defend the integrity of elections, and we got to make sure that people have the right to vote, because we know in this last election, this year, that the senior vote, the vote by mail, there were a lot of voter suppression.
Right.
And we have laws that are suppressing the right to vote. And that is a fundamental issue. That's the reason why I am defending the rule of law, and that's the reason why I want to be your next county judge.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. What are some organizations within the community that you partner with?
Oh, well, I mean, coming from the children's court and being the local administrative judge of the district courts, I want to give a shout out to Judge Stephanie Boyd. I want to give a shout out to Judge Yolanda Huff, Judge Kimberly Burley, who are African American judges who are experienced jurists. They're on the ballot, and I'm supporting and endorsing them because, again, we got to make sure that we have diversity, and we've got to make sure that our face of the judiciary reflects our community. But more the important about that is it's the commitment to children and families.
Right.
And I dedicated my whole judicial career as a district court judge to protect children, empower families by putting them back together, and trying to improve the system, especially our child welfare system that unfortunately is broken because of the lack of leadership.
Right.
And so now as county judge, I want to bring those child-centric, family-focused that I brought to the courts to bring to the county. I want us to focus in on what's the most important infrastructure of our county, and that's children and families. That means affordable housing.
Right.
That means we've got to deal with public health. Public health that Dr. Betts that just came on the show on the coffee break. We got to deal with wellness. We got to deal with nutrition. We got to deal with what's called food deserts, places that don't have fruits and vegetables. We've got to deal with nutrition. We've got to deal with the diseases, obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, all those issues that you just talked about, we've got to deal with to make our community wholesome and well, resilient, and basically so that they're ready for the workforce. And we've got to get our kids prepared for the new world.
Right. I guess when in the position that you're in, you would have to partner with other organizations in order to encompass all of those things, because it just seems like in that position as a judge, there's no time for consideration for everything.
I learned as a judge that I could not fix things from the bench.
Yeah.
I had to partner with public-private partnerships. I had to partner up with the churches in our community. I had to partner up with the nonprofits such as Child Advocates and Child Safe and all those community organizations that are out there to protect children. And that's the reason why we've got to come together. We need a leader that is a unifier, not a divider.
Right.
We got to bring people together. We got to get the experts to the table and bring all the stakeholders. And what we need to do is we need to fix things. We need to find the solutions to our community issues. And it takes people who they have to learn to listen.
But is that difficult to do? It seems very difficult and challenging to do, to bring everybody together.
Well, I'm telling you, we live in a tough time, and we're divided by politics.
Yeah.
Either you're on one side or the other.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, as a unifier, I want to say, let's not argue over political ideology. Let's not divide and conquer over political parties. Let's find out what our community needs, and let's come up with those solutions.
Right.
And so I want to be your next county judge in order that we can then protect our entire community, especially our communities of color, that disproportionality, they haven't been served.
Right, absolutely.
We have to demand equity, and equity has to be intentional.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because one big thing in the community is recidivism.
Yes, right.
Like people keep getting caught up in that same cycle, going back. And if there's no change, then they have no choice but to continue with the same thing.
And that's what I learned from the courts. And that's your 40 years of being a public servant also taught me about restorative justice.
Right.
Restorative justice focuses on what's positive of people. So when people came before me, it's like, and it's what you heard with Judge Boyd, what has happened to you? What trauma, what has created you to make these bad choices? And what we need to do then is to help people make the right choices, hold them accountable, learn that they got to follow rules, but we also have to fix their records, and we got to fix their driver's license, and we got to give them a second opportunity to succeed, because that's the only way we're going to move forward in this community.
So Judge Sakai, like we've been talking about some really interesting stuff. I mean, as far as helping within the African American community, when people come into your courtroom and giving them a second chance, because like you said, this nation is in a rough place right now. We're really going through some stuff. And so, just having like, that diversity in the courtroom. I feel like when somebody comes in and they see a person of color, they kind of get that little sigh of relief. Right. Do you feel that?
Oh yeah, and I've had to be very aware that I'm not African American,
right.
And so when they look at me, I'm not necessarily perhaps a friendly face, and so I have to work harder and be more intentional to understand that when somebody's angry at me, it may not be personal, but because of the trauma they suffered.
Yeah.
And I have to be sensitive that, people come to court for various reasons, especially in our abuse and neglect, because there are generational issues of abuse and neglect, and that's the way people were raised. Nobody's taught how to raise your kids. You just kind of learn it, and you hope to have parents who mentor you and provide you some really positive and structure. But we know that we have a lot of families that don't have that. And so I learned in the children's court that you had to come up with specialty programs because we had to change the way our child welfare system worked. We have a child welfare system that's very punitive, that takes away kids. And I had to teach child welfare. We need to put these kids back.
Right.
And so you have to work just as hard to put these children back into their families as it was hard to pull them back out.
Right.
And so that is what I believe is restorative justice. Focus on what is positive.
You said something that was powerful. You said you grew up different.
I grew up different.
Yeah. And so you may not know what it's like to be an African American, but you know what it's like to be different.
Yeah. I remember as a little kid praying to God, why'd you make me different? Why can't I have blonde hair? Why can't I have blue eyes?
Or afro.
Oh, afro. But
right.
yeah, and so I know what it means to be different. I know what it means to be teased and taunted and to, but as we know, what we learn and I grew up at a time when my parents would tell me, oh, just ignore it. Just don't pay attention to that. And so what I wanted my kids to understand is, and they're both Asian and Hispanic because their mama's Hispanic, I want them to be proud of who they are.
Wow.
And I think that's what we have to do as a community. We got to make sure that our culture, our history is always front and center, and we can't forget about those things that have happened in the past.
Right. You also talked about your dad being someone as a Japanese American was forced into going into those concentration camps following was it Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
What has he said about that? That's so, it just seems so traumatic. In America
it was traumatic, and it was the experience he wanted me to understand and never forget. And for that, I'll always be indebted to my dad, even though he and I didn't get along. We butted heads.
Right.
I was a liberal, he was a conservative. I had long hair, he had a crew cut. But I'm telling you, that was one thing he said, don't ever forget this experience.
Right. And he had to join the military in order to get out of that.
That's right.
Wow.
And that's the reason why today I'm like, we should never, ever forget about the people who are marginalized, who are discriminated.
Right.
Think about 9/11 and what we did to the Muslim community.
Right.
Think about what we're doing now to transgender children.
Right.
What are we doing to women?
Yeah, absolutely. When we just lost rights.
That's right.
In a big way. Roe v. Wade. Like, wow.
So we've got to be on guard to protect our rights, and that's the reason why I'm stepping up to be your next county judge.
Yeah. Thank you, Judge Sakai.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.